that's a deal, right? Ride with me if you ride with me, you can slide with me if you feel like 550 on the 5 sticky, come get high with me, that's a deal, right? That's a deal, right? So they want me down and out.
We ain't going out like that. We ain't going out like that. Watch me go and bounce right back. Down for the count, but the hound strike back.
Hello and welcome back to Whole Brother Live. I am your host, Dr. Malik Blade, and I have been held accountable for not doing questions recently. I do put out stuff to ask people to submit questions, but in recent weeks, this is the 4th episode since coming back. In recent weeks, there's been a lot to cover, so I haven't gotten to them, or I've intention to do it at the end of the episode, and it just doesn't happen. So what I'm going to do is start with the question today. I'm just only able to do one today because there is, of course, still a lot to cover, even though I was trying to do maybe 2 or 3 because I've missed certain weeks. But I'm going to start with a question and then jump in on some things that I think are very relevant. And I want to give I don't want to call it a warning, maybe a notice to ease the minds, because I do know as it relates to how I've branded this episode, there's an alert that goes out on YouTube in advance with kind of a banner with some things related to the topic, similarly on Instagram and other places. And I know, knowing how certain men are, they may be alarmed when you see that it's something about Diddy, when you see that it's something about sexuality. These topics for, I would say, maybe the average straight man are things that we just shy away from and just don't talk about at all. And there's a variety of reasons for that. I do think, although we might look at America as a progressive place in terms of sexuality and sex discussions and identity and stuff, I always say that I think that whole conversation needs to be had separate and independent of uh, black men. Black men that come from a particular background aren't necessarily on that same page. So it's just a different way to have the conversation. So I think rather than lumping everyone into a certain category and saying that this is the perspective, I think it's important to understand there are certain cultural factors that make certain things taboo. And when something is taboo, sometimes people just stay away from it completely. There's also this idea. I remember one of my followers on Twitter was joking about, I think he was talking about the Diddy stuff and how there were accusations about Diddy being gay and so on and so forth. And he pointed out, like, the fact that I'm even talking about this topic, people going to start accusing me of being gay. It's like this, there's so much stigma around that, particularly, I would say, for straight black men, that people are just scared to even have the discussion. So many things get brushed under the rug and not discussed. So this Diddy stuff is awkward on a lot of levels too, which is why some people just want to go for the joke. Let's laugh about the baby oil. But seemingly there's more to it than just the Cassie stuff. But there were supposedly and allegedly male victims and participants. So I would say if you feel uncomfortable with that type of topic, I would encourage you to lean in. Don't just run away. Don't be alarmed and scared. I'm going to address this from a variety of perspectives, but I think for a healing purpose for the community, it's going to be needed for straight men to be able to have more nuanced discussions and contribute more to the gender identity and sexuality conversation than I ain't messing with that gay stuff, right? That is the average, I would say, straight black male response to these things. And we need more than that in terms of educating ourselves and contributing to the conversation. And this is not arguing for uniformity. This is not saying you got to have this perspective on a topic. I'm just saying how you engage should be more informed and educated, be willing to understand experiences outside of your own. So you'll understand why I did that preface a lot later. So stay with me for the whole episode. But let me start with this question, and it is, How can a man that's been taught to be a supportive person, let me start over. How can a man that's been taught to be a supportive person learn to be a leader when they don't have a father figure or role model to give advice to them on how to lead? So, this is unfortunately a very common thing where, in general, I think a lot of us as men have to figure out manhood and leadership on our own from trial and error. Whether you have a father present in the home or not, there are several instances where you still don't necessarily get that guidance. In my first book, Whole Brother, Debunking the Myths That Break the Black Family, I talk about four different types of fathers at the beginning of the book, and one of them is the present but distant father. That's a father that's physically present in the home but emotionally distant. Many men have that father. He was there. So oftentimes, if he's physically there, the assumption is that he was a good father. But there are instances where he's there, but he didn't really pass on anything. He didn't pass the baton, so to speak. So the son is left to kind of figure these things out. I'm sure many of you remember also the Fresh Prince of Bel Air episode where uh, Will's dad kind of disappeared and he broke down in Uncle Phil's arms, saying, you know, I'm gonna make it without him. There are many of us that are fighting that battle of trying to seem as if I'm good with my dad being absent and I made it without his help. There's what I'd also describe in the book as spiteful success, where it's like, you know what? I'm going to show him I made it without him, even to a point of showing him you made it without him to earn his love or his investment or his time. And it can be really crushing if a guy does something like, I made something of myself, I made it to the NFL, and the dad still doesn't budge or doesn't want to be involved. So there's so many layers to black male dynamics with their dads. There's so much that I could say there. And again, that's why I wrote a book about it. So get Whole Brother, Debunking the Myths That Break the Black Family from wholebrothermission.com. But in terms of how to lead, I would say we're left with less ideal options. So I'm gonna just say that from the onset. It is most ideal for your dad to be the guy that instills those things in you because that's the first man that you seemingly would have a close relationship with. Many of us, even into our teen years or adult years, as we're attempting to establish independence, already have a level of trust with him. I can speak to difficult to try to guide men on aspects of themselves that they need to change. It's difficult for men to guide other men on that because there's this guard up where it's like you're a man, you do your stuff. Don't know other man need to tell me what to do. And oftentimes the only situation where we open ourselves up to that is if it's our dad. And even in some cases, some guys will not open themselves up to advice or guidance from their dad either. So there is typically a barrier there, but it can be done. It should be done most ideally by dad. Um, if we don't have that, then we have to go to our plan B options to still get some level of guidance and wisdom and bounce things off of. The ways that that can be done are the more formal route, I would say, in therapy. Uh, I hate to say you have to pay for guidance and what your father should have did, but sometimes you just got to pay for it. So therapy is a place where you can get some of that. Maybe even a coach or a mentor, um, um, paid or unpaid. Um, if you have faith, me being a Christian, I would say our Heavenly Father can fill in some of those voids that our earthly father did not. So there's that. And I'm sure there's other faith systems that you can lean on that provide some level of support and guidance. Because leading, I think, ultimately at the core ends up being about someone having some at least a core system of values that you're leading from, that you're passing on to others, that you can stick to. Um, so that can be found, within a faith system. Um, and then on a more practical level, outside of the formal ones, hopefully you have other men in your community that you can speak openly about needing some guidance from or bouncing some things off of. And I know that this is awkward, right? Because again, there's this culture of very shallow relationships amongst men. There are even fathers and sons who just have had small talk their whole lives. I never forget a friend from middle school who was very basketball focused. He later went on to get drafted to the NBA. He said when we were in middle school, my dad only talks to me about basketball. That was the bulk of their relationship was basketball discussions. Um, so it's important for us to recognize one, the seriousness of what we missed out on, and being strategic about getting that somewhere else. Um, it seems to me, though, more often than not, guys just wing it. And while that may work out for some, there are partners, spouses, girlfriends, and children that get damaged along the way as that guy is just kind of winging it and figuring out what it means to be a leader. Sometimes he leans too much into being domineering. Sometimes he's too passive and really can't make a decision. And that affects the people around you. So if you don't have an uncle or a cousin to turn to, I would say there's this more awkward step that you would have to take of a man in your community that you trust for that, reaching out to him for that, and just being very clear that this is what's going on. This is what I recognize I need. And again, I think although it may be difficult or awkward, please recognize that intentionality is required because these things didn't just happen by happenstance. The issue that we're trying to resolve happened because of some intentionality, whether it's someone left or someone not instilling things in them. To fix issues that are there that didn't just happen by osmosis, we have to be intentional too, as opposed to just expecting these things to resolve themselves naturally. So I know a lot of us will make the statement, I don't want to do nothing if it don't feel natural. Well, then you wouldn't get a lot of stuff done if that was the approach. So we have to be willing to do some things that feel unnatural because we know they're right or necessary. So that's my question for the day. So hopefully that is thorough enough, and I'll try to get to some more in coming weeks. Now, these topics for this week, let me tell you, man, I even felt overwhelmed preparing for today because all of them are thorough. So when I say thorough, I mean like I have to be very careful in how I speak, thoughtful in how I speak, and I think all of them will require a certain level of time too. I typically have certain things I can touch on real quick and then move, but each of them requires uh, time, thoughtfulness, and an additional level of care. So, where can we begin? Uh, let's start with the Diddy stuff. Yeah, let's start with the Diddy stuff. So there is some context that's needed here. So you probably are already familiar with the Diddy allegations of having freak offs and baby oil and sex trafficking and I believe racketeering. There are things he's being accused of, and he's currently incarcerated for those, I believe, federal charges. Uh, since that news has come out, there have been allegations of basically men participating in these group sex acts, and others have accused Diddy of approaching them in a sexual manner. Um, so, unfortunately, for a lot of men that have engaged with this topic, they haven't talked about potential abuse, but they focus more on the fact that as we are getting this information, Diddy essentially is being outed for being gay or bisexual. Um, and to even say that, I have to acknowledge, like, again, when we talk about these things from sexuality from a cultural perspective, America, and then we talk about it from how a lot of black men view it. I never forget talking to a guy and black male, and he said something out loud that I knew was a understood perspective, but he said it out loud. He was like, "What does?" He was like, "Girls can be gay, girls can be bi, but men can't be bi. You're just gay, right?" So he essentially, the view that I know a lot of us do have is that if a man participates in any type of gay sex act, then that gay overshadows everything, and there's no such thing as being bisexual. We ignore the fact that you like women too, because again, there's so much stigma tied to being gay. I know that's the perspective, and I'll address a lot of that, more at a different time. But for the sake of this, I know that that mentality played a part in terms of how we process through the Diddy stuff too. It's like, well, we saw him beat up Cassie, and these other women are accusing him of this, but bump all that, this nigga gay. That is mainly the focus. It's blowing people's minds. It's a spectacle, and that ends up being the main focus. Uh, Even to the point where now no Diddy is a thing, and that's a term now used to replace no homo or pause. Uh, so that is the talk of the town: is Diddy or is Diddy not gay, and so on and so forth. Uh, so Diddy had these TV shows making the band. There was the first making the band, just the band, and then there was making the band, I believe, with Daniel D. Kane and with Day 26. Day 26 was a men's R&B group that Diddy put together from a TV show contest. They went on to release some songs, and fast forwarding, they were on the Breakfast Club today, and one of the members' name was Q, and I'll just play it for you. This is what Q had to say on the Breakfast Club today.
Do you own your own home in Maryland, but still rent your electricity? For a limited time only,
Advertisements.
homeowners in specific zip codes.
Problem with this guy, man, and be honest, just came
So
out.
let me pause this. So they're talking in a joking manner about Diddy at first, and then Q tries to bring it down and say, I have a lot of trauma related to Diddy. Let's not joke about it. And notice what happens afterward, but that's just some context for you.
Of them, but the one that just came out a couple nights ago on ID.
Oh, that one that just came out.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
But he said he recorded, and Diddy wanted to record in the shower because he said it was a vibe in the shower. That's what he said. Real true story.
Being creative.
I'm gonna be honest.
Recording music? Oh, I mean, I don't
Can I
know.
say something? I just want to say, to be very transparent with y'all, like I've been through so much trauma with this guy, man, and the whole situation. And I just want to say, I think he needs a lot of prayer, and he needs mental health, like the things that we can relate to. You know,
Absolutely.
I think that's what's gonna save him or help him.
Yeah.
Nothing else. I don't think we should talk about him. I don't think we should make fun of him. It's like real. That's
A lot of the stuff is funny though.
It is funny. I agree with you, Q.
Sometimes, just some
I'm
things.
with you 100%. But it is, to Jeff's point,
It's
it
funny.
is a lot of comedy.
Yeah, a joke is a joke.
But there's also a lot of trauma there.
And
I'm sorry, it do be funny.
sometimes that's all you can really do.
I just
you know what I
think
mean?
so.
Just laugh at it. Just not all of it.
When
You
they
know what I'm
put
saying?
out
Just some of the
all
things
them
like,
thousands of
come
bottles of
on,
baby
like,
oil,
Yeah.
bro, it's funny.
Yeah.
Listen,
But you know what it is, Q? Like a lot of times, man,
Say-
you see
say
people, a lot of times when we talk about people's trauma, it makes it feel like we're making excuses for him, but it really is,
Right.
that
Yeah.
really probably is the root of all of this shit.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
hurt people, man.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah,
For
there
sure.
we go.
But no, you definitely on to something like, just praying for him. Because obviously the latest documentary, which is why we was asking y'all about it, it actually dives into his childhood and how he may have gotten to the state of where he is or where he was.
Now I
when
seen
he
that
was
with the
doing-
making of a bad boy. That's
Yeah,
what
something like
I
that.
seen
Yeah,
that.
my man, know him.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And they got to show like his past with his
Yeah.
mom and how things
Yeah.
that he was privy to at such a young age and how it
Yeah.
it may have a lot to do with how he.
But I
was.
like this
If
conversation,
you don't
though.
mind me asking, Q, you don't got to answer. How did he traumatize you personally?
I can't talk about it right now.
Gotcha,
Yeah.
gotcha.
But you will find out soon.
Oh, word.
Yeah.
Okay.
But the reason I
So, for those that can't see it, to me, Q, as he's talking, he looks like he's really going through it. Like, there's a story there, and at least that's what his face is saying to me, right? And I hate that they pivoted back to jokes, because there was a lot of jokes before and there were a lot of jokes after. And to me, that sounded like a cry for help. There's really, and we'll see what he releases, what comes out that he couldn't speak about. I have my suspicions, but uh, we have to be willing to have these conversations without pivoting to jokes or just completely uh, removing ourselves from it, because then we don't allow space for people to process through whatever they're going through. Uh, I never forget, like growing up in church, there was such a stigma against gay men in particular, that even though church is supposed to be like a safe haven for people, there exists a DL culture in and out of church because people know that they're not welcome to even share that. So even in a church space where if someone is looking at it as a spiritual issue, they couldn't even get the spiritual help because there will be so much stigma tied to that. Now, there's forgiveness and grace a lot of times for men that are alcoholics and that beat their wives and things like that. But there is some unique disdain and disgust for that one particular thing that I think has created an unhealthy environment in and out of churches and so on and so forth. So, like, even in this conversation, I do think there was some uncomfortability around leaning into that. Like, there's so much more that could have been pulled out of what Q said, but I do think the uncomfortability keeps us from leaning into those conversations and so on and so forth. And you'll see as I go forward today, this is a theme that comes up quite a bit. So it seems like he might be leaning toward there was some type of abuse, pursuit, pressure, coercion, something going on there, it seems. Uh, but it remains to be seen. But that's what it seems to me. Now, let's fast forward. Uh, I am not, I wouldn't consider myself a streamer or an influencer or a content creator. I happen to be on those platforms and do those things, but I would say, uh, I identify more with what I was doing before I got to that. Uh, and I just use those means to promote what I was already doing, which by career, even though it's under fire right now, I did like diversity consulting. DEI was my lane in terms of career wise, a traditional job. And then I pivoted to being the CEO of the Whole Brother Mission and seeing my own clients and writing books. So, and wanted to get deep into that and prepare for it properly. So I did doctoral studies. I have a doctorate in counseling. My dissertation focused on the most common reasons that black men are in counseling. I did this to help better lead the organization, the Whole Brother Mission, which is a nonprofit connecting black men with therapists nationwide. And that's how we get here with a podcast called Whole Brother Live and these nice mint green uh, mic shields or sponges, as some call them. Uh, and then I use those platforms to promote what's already going on. There are other people who just by virtue of their streaming, and that's what they do. They stream, uh, and one of those most prominent streamers that I first discovered was DJ Academics. And he's been under fire recently for this clip, and this is a series of clips I think mixed together. But he's been under fire for this, and you know, it's interesting because as I talk about the uncomfortability with responding to Q's situation and what he was potentially putting out there and how people talk about Diddy, I think some of the responses here are emblematic of my overall concern with how men respond to, as I talked about in previous episodes, we don't respond well to sexual abuse of little boys because oftentimes it's seen as a rite of passage, especially if it's a girl. We don't give room for men to talk about sexual abuse or maybe confusing experiences they had as it relates to sex between two men. That is something that people have to hide behind uh, or hide from their community because there's so much stigma tied to it. And I do think these mentalities make certain situations, keep certain situations from being healing because, again, the stigma. So, dealing with the first one around not really being able to see boys as being abused, I don't think it's in this clip, but basically, what I'm about to play for you is a series of clips with DJ Academics streaming with another person and a 15-year-old boy. And the clips have gone viral because it is what some people have described as grooming. Uh, People were wondering why was Academics talking sexually to this 15-year-old boy. And you'll notice that even the boy is being more, the 15-year-old boy is being the adult in the room because Academics is, I believe, 36. The 15-year-old boy is the only one with some sense in terms of these. And these are all separate recordings at different times. And before I play it, I'll tell you, after the stuff went viral, Academics responded with attacking other streamers because he was upset that he looks out for people. He supports other streamers that he doesn't need. So he was upset that one of them, PlaqueBoyMax, which is another streamer, was, I guess, not defending him. PlaqueBoyMax is friends with the 15-year-old who you're about to hear Academics talking to. And I'll talk more about PlaqueBoyMax in a minute because he got caught up in something. But Academics first responded to people being upset with him talking sexually to a 15-year-old boy with being upset with the streamers. Then he came back and said he would do better and seemingly apologized for it. But in his apology, so to speak, he said that it would have been an issue, or he could understand, I guess, people being upset if he was talking this way to a 15-year-old girl. But somehow, because it's a boy, it's okay. Or it was just some little brother stuff, is kind of how he described it. But this is a compilation of the different interactions.
If Max said he wanted to try fucking a dude, would you let him fuck you?
No.
Why not?
Why not?
Yo. You can have. Wait.
If I can't fuck you, I'm cutting you off.
No, yo. Suppose he's like, yo, bro. Listen, yo, you always wanted me to be next to you. Now I could be inside of you. Pause.
Yo, I'm not gay.
Nah,
you just suck a dick though.
Yeah.
Yeah, with it.
Wait, hold on. So you tell me that there's not another 15-year-old that you could bust down?
Yo, bro.
I'm serious. So there's not another 15-year-old you could bust down?
You go to school?
Yo, if Max got a sister and she threw you the box, would you smash her?
He already has a sister.
Alright, if she threw you the box, would you smash?
No, because I'm 15.
What that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean?
She's above 18.
What that mean?
Okay, what does that mean?
It will be grooming.
It'll be what?
Grooming.
That has nothing to do with you.
Nah, imagine not.
Yo, Nor, what's your address? I'm gonna send some strippers over there.
Slow down, yo. I am 15. I hope you know that, bro. You trying to get...
You scared of women, bro.
I'm not scared of women. Yo, bro, you trying to put me on a case. You trying to put them on a case.
So?
What you mean, so? That's weird.
Trying to look out. You know all the rappers lost their virginity to, like, old women, right? Like...
You know, that, even listening back to it, is very strange from my perspective because it's like they kept pushing. And it's like he's the only one that had the voice of reason. And they're seemingly oblivious. Grooming? What's the problem with that? What's wrong with this? What's wrong with that? And I think it points to some extreme immaturity on their end. But even if you think about the last statement that was made, a lot of rappers lost their virginity to older women. That points to, again, I do think that's prominent in the hip hop culture, but that's prominent for a lot of boys, unfortunately. And again, men not leaning into more nuanced conversations about sex and sexuality, it's just giving the stamp of approval. We're not the same way that we're quick to step up to other men if we see them being violent. Don't put your hands on a woman. There's somewhat, I would say, of a cultural norm of even men who ain't living right have some sense of value and moral code where it's like it's not cool to beat up a woman. That same innate kind of moral value where we stick up for women that are getting beat up by men, it doesn't seem like we have that same stick your chest out, let me be a good man and defend. We don't have that same thing with little boys. We don't have the same thing with little boys when it's someone pushing them toward an adult act. We don't have that same protection when it is adult women messing with little boys, or even people like academics having this type of conversation with a child. This was on a stream that I imagine, since it's recorded, it was public when it originally happened, and it's just now kind of getting some steam now. That's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that we don't feel the need to protect boys in the same way that we do little girls. Uh, and it begs the question, or it proves uh, why there is a lack of self-worth amongst a lot of boys and men who don't really see purpose or value outside of that. And it might be due to others not showing them or instilling in them that they have some level of value. Uh, so I think that we need to call things out like this more. As I spoke to you about in the last episode, Little Boosie has me blocked because I spoke very sternly against him having adult women have sex with his underage sons. And we only know that because he told us, because he didn't think it was a problem, right? So that once again proves that there's this culture of, it's cool, it's a boy. There's this devaluing of boys. And this is a less extreme example. It has nothing to do with sex or sexual abuse, but even like there's a family member of mine that has a daughter, an adult daughter, and an adult son. And he even once said, my daughter, that's my baby. And then we were like, well, what about your son? He was like, nah, my daughter, she my baby though. And it's not helpful to have this culture of your daughters need your love, your sons just need your discipline. I do think that is part of what creates this dichotomy where we don't protect boys as much, but they do need that protection. Because the same way you think that your daughter getting exposed to sex too early can turn her into a promiscuous woman, well, that's exactly what's happening to your boys, right? And that's why they're promiscuous men who can't keep their stuff in their pants and protect their vows and not cheat on their wife or get an STD or have a pregnancy with someone that they don't even like or know. So rather than just saying that's a normal straight male approach to life, I do think some of that can be tied back to a socialization, a boy thinking that that's just a part of being a man, that's just part of being straight, or that's the way that you prove value by conquering women. And if we don't take them under our arms with good intentions and no ulterior motives and show them something better, the cycle will continue. So I do think we need to deviate from this, again, this idea that girls need to be protected and loved. Boys just need to be disciplined and taught to respect you. They need so much more than that. And I'm reminded of the saying that some people say. I've seen some moms say it's so much easier to raise boys than raise girls, and some will push back on that and say, "Well, that's because you're not actually raising the boys. You're just letting them grow up." So I do think on a much larger scale, let's rethink how we look out for black boys, whether they're teenagers or not, whether they're already having sex or not, whether they're active or independent or not. We should care for each other generally, adults and children. But let's just talk about now for those that are still minors, let's look out for them the same way you look out for girls. That's it. I'm not asking too much. Look out for underage boys the same way you look out for underage girls. And if you're not looking out for underage girls, then start looking out for underage girls and underage boys. And actually speak to sex in a way that's more than just, well, if you do it, use a condom. Because that's the advice that a lot of us got from our fathers. That's the most that they'll speak on it. Use a condom. Don't bring no kids home. But there's so much more that needs to be unpacked. And I do think if we had a better culture around conversations around sex, sexuality, and so on and so forth, these things might not happen as much. Like the clip I just played. So, yeah. So academics may block me too now. I don't know. But, you know, we got to do better. And doing better is not just change behavior, but it's also change mentality, change perspective. Moving on. So now I got to go to PlaqueBoyMax. Now this is where things get interesting. I remember a long time ago, Usher, I guess, was releasing music, and he had photos to go with the music. And one of the photos was Usher with his pants at his ankles, and his underwear were showing. He was just standing there in his underwear with his pants at his ankles. And I remember Usher got so much flack from straight men because, and from some women too, they said it was gay that he was exposing himself in that way, knowing that other men might see it. And I was young at the time, so I was just learning culture and how people view things and what's okay and what's not okay. So even that influenced me. Like, I think this was around the time social media was starting to bubble up too. So it instilled something in me that, oh, okay, so it's wrong for men to kind of be naked or shirtless, or that's not something men should do. And I'll say at the time, what I internalized was, okay, that's only something women should do. So being scantily clad is just something women should do. Men shouldn't do that. That was a common value at the time. So I remember that happened, and now it seems we have really come full circle. So I don't want to project certain things onto PlaqueBoyMax, but these are the accusations. So this is another streamer, and you can just listen to him explaining what's happening. I believe he has 1 million followers on Twitch, so he's gotten a big following, and we're going to talk about how some perceive how he got there. But this is him explaining a recent controversial situation.
Last year, I was streaming one day, and Aiden and Kai came to my chat and raided my chat and said, yo, Drake dropped. But he didn't actually drop. So I was like, fuck y'all, turn around and smack my ass. Now, I don't know if y'all seen, but this clip is going like OD viral. This shit is like triple platinum on gay Twitter. There's a lot of clips, images, blank of me that leads to me getting harassed. I don't know. Like, mad streamers do gay shit, but for some reason, whenever I do some shit that's slightly, it's going triple platinum on gay Twitter every time. I'm gonna keep it a buck every time. And it leads to me getting harassed. I know y'all see the comments of niggas talking about they want to impregnate me and change the geological physics of a man, all type of nut shit. I know y'all see that shit on Twitter. It's way worse than like comments, and not comments, but DMs. Like, niggas be real life wildin'. I'm not gonna lie, bro. This shit really make me uncomfortable. It do. Like, overly uncomfortable. Overly, bro. Cause I'm gonna keep it a buck, bro. I really genuinely feel like if I was a woman, this shit wouldn't be okay. And niggas would say something out about it. Now, if y'all have noticed, I've kind of dialed back that part of me. I don't really like, you know what I'm saying? I'll probably say some slick shit here and there. But like, shit like that, pulling my pants down and One, I realized for one, what message am I passing to my chat, like to y'all, like for me to pull down my pants and smack my ass. So I'm gonna be honest, bro. How I really look at it is like it was really more so a message from God, like this is where like look what you're doing. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to all my gay niggas. I'm sure there's some gay niggas in chat because there's mad niggas in here. Y'all are great. But niggas coming in my DMs, sending a dick or some weird shit, or talking about, bro, like, your bubble butt, your shit's mad, like, bro, that shit is wild, gang. That's not me, gang. You gotta back the fuck up. And I'm gonna keep it a buck, bro. That's the thing about being on the internet. These type of shits live on forever. And that's just something I have to be okay with because it happened. I did it. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, it's ultimately my fault. I gotta take accountability. I'm the one who did that bullshit. You feel me? But it's like, bro, it's getting to the point like that shit really do make me uncomfortable. It's OD.
And in case you're not following, he on a stream pulled down his pants, not completely naked, still had underwear on, just like the Usher thing I told you about. He pulled his pants down and he turned around and slapped his own butt. And more recently, even though that's an old thing he did on his stream, it's going viral. And like he said on gay Twitter, and I guess gay men have been contacting him. As this has unfolded, I learned a new term, and it wasn't just from him, it's from somebody else I'm about to get to as well. There's a term called gay baiting. I didn't know it was a thing, but now I know. And a lot of, I guess, people from the gay community are saying that he is and has been gay baiting for followers. And I guess a way to define it is when straight men purposely do things that they know will attract gay men. I guess, yeah. So pretending to be gay or doing things that will attract gay men, but you're not gay. And I know that some of the arguments against him on social media have been that he's doing it for the followers. It's just for the attention. And even when when they posted this clip of his response, I remember, I can't find the number, one of the responses was, it was all fine and dandy when you were getting followers and likes and views from gay men while you were showing these different parts of your body and so on and so forth on your stream. That was all fine then, but now that they're contacting you, it's a problem. So like you invited the gay men over, but you just want them to look and support you from a distance, but not contact you. So I guess that's what they're saying the gay baiting is. Another example of this is also NLE Choppa. He's a rapper who does show up on people's streams too. And he recently did a photo shoot for Playgirl. And of course, just like Playboy is naked women, Playgirl naked, scantily clad men. And his photos from that photo shoot came out, and even though it was for Playgirl, they're saying that he's gay baiting too by what he chose to wear and the poses he chose to do. And even before he posed for Playgirl, they're saying that there's other things he did as it relates to what he posted on social media that was intentionally to try to draw in a gay audience. So here's my thing. I'm not here to police or judge whether something meets the quota or standard of gay baiting or not. But I will say this. We've come a long way from Usher was gay for being an R&B singer with his pants down because men might see the picture too. We've come a long way from that to now something that I know is common. And I'm not going to say for sure that these men are doing it, but I know that this is a thing. We have gotten to a point in our culture where straight men, seemingly, are a lot more comfortable profiting off of gay men. OnlyFans is a lot more popular in this culture today, and it's nothing to see somebody online, look at their profile, and see an OnlyFans link there, and they're promoting their OnlyFans porn page by dropping clips on their social media, men and women. right? And the argument in terms of the gay baiting is that there are rappers, R&B singers, streamers who are straight men, but they know that gay men will tune into their stream or purchase their sexual content. And it's at a point where straight men are actually okay with that. So what used to be a random stranger seeing you naked is you participating in something gay has now become, well, it's okay if I'm getting paid for it or I'm profiting off of it. As long as I didn't do anything with them, I don't care who's looking at me. That's kind of become the standard. And I think that's an interesting change of pace. Not my cup of tea, but I will say it also points to a level of desperation. Whether it be girls or boys or OnlyFans or just doing stuff just to go viral, it points to we're at a very low point in culture where people are so desperate for a viral moment or some change or a little bit of money that they'll do things that they'll regret later. People talk about bring back shame. I support that sometimes. I don't know if it's best for people in their early 20s to be making the decision to be naked on social media for $13 a month. Because you'll make that decision, and by the time you turn 28, you realize, nah, that wasn't a good move, right? So I'm concerned about how shame has gone away and how there's pride in using yourself in a. There's pride in prostituting yourself, whether it be women doing it for men's attention, but now even straight men doing it for gay men's attention. It's whatever will get me a dollar. And I know some will say, "Well, you shut up about how they make their money if you ain't gonna pay their bills." I get that. I'm just saying the values or the principles behind it. I'm not speaking to people that are in an absolutely dire situation and they won't eat if they don't do this content. If that's the case with you, that's one thing. That's over here. I'm talking about the people that are doing it that have food to eat and a shelter to live in, and they're just doing it and compromising themselves in certain ways that they don't realize. Um, because even as people have spoken to this whole OnlyFans thing, I've seen people. I don't subscribe. I'm not on anybody's OnlyFans, so I don't know the details of how that works. But I know it's. I just know you pay. It's a monthly subscription. The creators have definitely shared with us the mechanics of how it works, and I do think they lie sometimes about inflating how much money they make on there. But a discussion that I was in, they were pointing out that more often than not, it's men that consume pornography in that way. While some women do consume pornography, some say that they don't pay for it at the rates that men do. So when a straight man chooses to do OnlyFans content, one, something that has to be realized is you can't police who buys your content. You can't say I'm straight, so I don't want these people to buy my sexual content. I just want women to buy it. Well, the reality is what they're saying is women don't really buy it. So if you sign up to do that, if you want to make some money, the money is going to come from gay men. Gay men and straight men are the ones that pay for pornography in droves. So there was this moment, I think, as OnlyFans was growing where guys had to make the decision, am I going to be able to police who accesses my content? And the answer is no. You can't just say I'm making content for women. I only want women to buy it. And eventually, it seems the consensus was, you know what? I'm okay with it. It don't matter who's buying, as long as I'm getting paid. I don't know if that's healthy or beneficial for us as a culture, or that's the way to go, where we'll do just about anything for a buck. It's just not a good place to be in, and I do think we gotta have some level, some standards on things that you won't do for money, because otherwise you'll end up potentially in a freak off or in some situation that you didn't necessarily sign up for, with unintended consequences because you were just driven by the paycheck. So think for yourself, what lines will I not cross, and be sure that you stick to those rather than just moving the goalposts constantly for whoever is going to pay you something. Um, So yeah, and there's so much more that can be said there. But I'm whetting your appetite with different topics, and then we're gonna come back to different things throughout this podcast journey that we're on. Um, so yeah, uh, I'm at my last thing, and I keep coming up on an hour. I guess I'm very succinct. I get to my points quickly. So I got about 10 minutes left. I could go longer, and I thought this was going to go over an hour, but here I am with 10 minutes left, and I got one more thing to cover. So it works out. I keep unintentionally doing around an hour. So here's the last thing that I wanted to cover, and this could go on forever. Um, Another example from my point of view of society crumbling. And I'm always speaking about things typically from the vantage point of men or related to black men. Whole brother live. There's this post I saw online, Twitter, of course, aka hell, and a guy says, "First time in my adult life, I don't talk to nobody at all, and I'm so at peace." And he's basically saying, for those that don't know, talk to, he mean he's not dating, he's not dealing with any woman. And a guy reposted it and said, "I'm really debating just paying for it when I need it and going on with my life." So if you don't know, he's saying paying for sex when I need it and not dating, just paying for sex and doing my single life. There were so many guys that liked, reposted it, and responded to it affirmatively. Here are some of the responses to that. "Wow, I found my tribe. I've been silent. I ain't want to get judged, laughing my ass off, but I've been thinking that too." And the guy who posted it originally said, "Laughing my ass off, niggas getting smarter." Another guy, in response to him saying, "Just pay for it and keep it moving," he said, "Laughing my ass off, hey, I swear I told one of my friends this like a week ago." And then another guy said, "I've been doing that. It's so much peaceful." So guys are at a point, and I've heard this before. It's not just this post where this is coming from, but I've heard this in my personal life, and I see it from a counseling perspective. Men are choosing just to pay for sex with women and completely skip the whole relationship thing. There's no intention to get married. There's no dating. And they're saying that it's so much more peaceful. On one hand, I understand, but on another hand, I'll say there's another solution. I think at the root of this is two things. One, lacking the skill set or the inability to coexist with people or women. Guys just don't know how to do that, and they're giving up. The other thing that I think is at play is we have devalued sex to something like a product or a commodity. So we've turned women into pieces of meat that are existing for our sexual gratification. And when they bring all these other things outside of their vagina, like opinions, feelings, different points of view, challenges for how I view things, when she shows up as a full human and not just a vagina with legs, we get upset because, like, I didn't sign up for this. The product that I wanted was sex and pleasure and a nut. And here you go with these opinions and all this stuff and family and deadlines for when you want a baby. And guys are saying, I didn't want all that, right? So they're deciding that I don't want all the parts of you as a human. I just wanted that part. And since I don't want all those other parts, let me just pay for that part. Someone who will give me that part and then leave. And what has been happening for so long has been, I just want that part, and the way to get that part is to get in a relationship. But now guys are realizing there's other ways to get that part, and they're okay with getting it the other way. This is horrible. This is not a good thing at all. And I'm glad that my focus is typically directly on the men, because this is on us. One, you have to be willing to grow and change rather than expecting to be able to show up in a relationship with another human being and that person just fall in line with you and be ready to smash at your beck and call and keep all their opinions and perspectives and life experiences and trauma and drama. Just keep all that to yourself. That expectation is not how relationships work. And it's not just a prostitution transactional relationship for a reason. And you would benefit from being able to work through those things. So rather than giving up on working on those things and just paying prostitutes, I would encourage you to actually do the work of being able to coexist with a woman. And sometimes that means you changing, and sometimes that means you picking better women. Because I know that part of this is men deal with women that have bad character, get frustrated and stressed out and decide, I don't need this, and then decide to pay for sex. But the problem isn't that women can't be coexisted with. In some cases, the problem is you just choose women based off of who you want to smash. And then you get upset that after you start dating her, after having sex on the first night, then y'all get in a relationship 4 months in and you realize you hate her guts because she's a horrible person. But you chose to stick around for that because of the sex. So guys are really depressing their own selves and frustrating their own selves by who they choose to engage with. If you chose better, you might get better results. If you did more than have small talk and sex, then you might have better success. But for many of us, we meet on an app, we meet at the club, y'all keep having drinks, you smoke together, you have small talk, and you have sex. And this is all you're doing, and then wondering why it didn't just magically work out, why she wasn't the woman of my dreams. Well, you didn't actually vet. Or you may be with a good woman, but you're just a crappy guy at the moment. And when I say crappy guy, I'm not saying inherently that that's all of who you are, but because of the choices you're making, you're a crappy partner to her. You're not giving her your best. We have to be willing to not just be stubborn, quote, alpha males. I know that for many men, they may not verbally say it this way, but being a masculine man, being an alpha male, really just means being stubborn. I don't listen to nobody. I do what I want and I don't budge. And that doesn't serve you well. That doesn't serve your partner well. That doesn't serve your children well. So I'm hoping that this doesn't get any more widespread than it already is. Men choosing to just pay for sex rather than be in relationships. I would say that some things that need to happen are, one, you need to find some self-revelation, some newfound perspective as it relates to relationships. I would say that they're not meant to just be there for your pleasure. That's a very hedonistic perspective, thinking that life is all about pleasure. So this is where we see guys that are addicted, constantly rotating women, smoking problem, drinking problem, and not really hitting the mark in more important areas of life because they're leaning solely into what's pleasurable to me. And I forgot to mention potential porn addiction or sex addiction, right? Just leaning into these things because it's pleasurable, but not being willing to do things that aren't necessarily pleasurable. I'm not a hedonist. You might not identify that way, but you are that way functionally. But life is not solely about what's pleasurable. In what areas are you going to step in and do what's necessary or what's right? And when we let what's pleasurable for us trump what's necessary and what's right, we end up like this. I'm going to just pay for sex and be single. There's a better way. I know I just jumped in some people's business, and putting this on the table might open up some things. So if you're mad at me, fine, be mad at me, throw a shoe at the screen, cool, comment, send a nasty message, do what you got to do. But if you hear this and you see yourself going in this direction, or you got a homeboy you know is going in this direction and you want better for him or you want better for yourself, please reach out to the Whole Brother Mission. You can work with me, wholebrothermission.com, or someone else, whoever. But there's more to the story than just these women are horrible. There are men that are happily married. There are men that are in happy relationships. There are men that have joy and they don't have to pay prostitutes for sex. I'll end it with this. You know, and I know, it's way better to have no worries or concerns, no looking at you over your shoulder, unprotected sex with a trusted woman than all that you go through with having protected sex with a stranger. And the temptation to potentially take the condom off with somebody you barely know. Do you want to do that for the rest of your life? Or do you want to be free? Have a good night.